are people all the time, I would say on a weekly basis, who say, Rabbi, I'd like to confide in you. I feel like if I told other people, they might think that I was crazy, but I know that you'll understand. Last night when I came home, I turned all the lights off and I went to bed, and this will be someone who just recently had a loss. And then I'll wake up with a start in the middle of the night and feel my loved one there talking to me, and I'll go downstairs and the lights are all on, and I know I turned them all off. And there are a lot of times people talk to me about communications that they feel that they're having with someone who's crossed to the other side. And in Judaism, we really believe that dying is a transition, that you're going from this world to the next world. And we even say a prayer, a traveler's prayer, at the end of life, that your travels from this world to the next are peaceful, and that you have no fear, and that you go with a certain amount of serenity, and that you know that just as when you entered this world, that there were people with their arms open, ready to receive you, and that their faces would light up when they saw you, that on the other side there are also people waiting with their arms wide open, and their faces are going to light up when they see you. If there were twins, let's say, in the womb, this is one of our traditional Jewish texts in Judaism, talks about the experience of death being like twins in a womb, and they get used to the dark, warm, sort of wet, loud feeling of being in the womb, and that's their experience of life. And then one day there's sort of all this rumbling and tumult, and one of them just disappears. And the other one is left thinking that there's been a crisis of some sort. But in Hebrew, the word for crisis and the word for birth stool is the same word. So there's this idea that what looks like a crisis is actually a birthing of sorts. So the twin that is left in the womb is thinking this has been the end, and I've lost my brother or sister, whereas people on the other side see that the child has come and that another one is on its way, and that's how this world and the next world are. In a sense, we're all like twins in the womb, and we feel like when someone's gone, we think that they're just gone. But truly, this world is like a womb, and we get used to it, and we think this is all there could possibly be. But just like a baby, we're in the womb, we're going somewhere else, and there will be people there waiting to greet us. A lot of times when I'm with people as they're dying, what I've seen is they'll start to speak a language that they haven't spoken since they were children. With Jews, it's a lot of times Yiddish, a language that many Jewish people spoke, like in the old country. And they won't have spoke it since they moved to this country. They spoke it with their parents who are long deceased. But I'll see they start speaking it a lot at the end, and it seems like they're speaking to their parents and their other relatives who only knew Yiddish. And sometimes their loved ones will say, wow, like he hasn't spoken Yiddish in 60 years. Frequently people will ask me to like tell their sister something, and they're people that are deceased. Like, oh, my sister Helen, go tell her. And they're looking past me and there's no one else in the room, but they'll say, I need to talk to her. Can you have her come over here? And I just sort of listen and say, tell me more about Helen. I don't like to deny people's experience. Like, some people, if sometimes the relatives are in the room and they'll say like, Mom, Helen died. What are you talking about? And it breaks my heart because I feel like what they're truly seeing something and experiencing something, and it's our job to nurture and support that experience that is helping them to make the transition from here to there. And in my personal life, I've had my grandfather passed away recently in the last year, and I feel like I've definitely received signs from him in the past year. Our family is all sorts of little things will just happen, and I'll know that that's him telling me to persevere or to be strong, or that he's proud of me. A lot of times it comes in the form of like animals. It sounds a little odd to say, but like we'll find like an animal that's supposed to be free and in the wild will just sort of park itself like on our front porch for a day or two, like an eagle. We had this, I don't remember if it was an eagle or some other kind of crazy wild bird that just, it wasn't injured or anything, and it just sat on our porch for like 24 hours, and it, we put our arm out and it would come on our arm, and it was was unbelievable because everyone who came over thought that it was injured, because why would it be that way with human beings? But it just sat with us, and it had these piercing blue eyes just like my grandfather. And when he came, it was a significant day in our family's, mourning. And then after like 24 hours after we had all spent some time with the bird, it just flew off and never came back. So things like that, and that happened to me, but things like that happened to everyone that I talked to. I know that the people's spirit continue, and that we all, I think, have the capacity to tap into that next world, but there's just so much noise in our lives and so much going on that we find there's a thick veil between this world and the next. But I think it's really a thin veil, and if we meditate and really focus our energies on touching that place, I think that we all have a certain capability to do that. That really subtle, still, small voice, which the Bible talks about as the voice of God, that's somewhere buried under all those layers that we all have, it gets muffled in the fast-paced world. But I think that that's partly when people are at the end of their lives, it isn't as muffled because there aren't as many distractions for them, and I think they really do see into the next place. I think who's to say that what they're experiencing isn't real and what we're seeing isn't just an illusion? Like, I think that just because you can't see something, doesn't mean that it's not there. And so much of spirituality is about believing in that which we can't see with our eyes, but that we can feel with our hearts. And that we just know, we perceive that there's more to this world and that our lives have meaning and that we're part of something greater. And so I don't like to, poo-poo things that we can't see and assume that they're like a hallucination or the firings of our brain. And maybe they are those things, but I would say they are those things and they are a symptom that there's something bigger going on in the world and that we need to pay attention to those things. And so I like to direct people to continue those conversations and to focus on them. And I ask them questions as if I'm right there with them. Like, so someone says, I need to tell my mom that the house is too dark or something. They'll just say comments about the house. And sometimes their loved ones will say, Mom, you haven't lived in that house in 40 years. And I say, okay, guys, let's just talk to her, because she's seeing that right now and that's her reality. So let's go there with her. And so I'll say, tell me about the house. Like, what do you see there? Like, what do you want Mom to know? What can we tell Mom? And to just draw that out of them more, because I think that what they're experiencing is very real. And when we negate it and we tell them that they're not experiencing that, then that it might draw them back into this world when that's not where they're meant to be right then. Their soul is really trying to transition out of the body and to a more open, expansive reality. And we don't want to keep tethering them to the body and tethering them to this limited vision of what is. Because that's all we can see, and maybe some people aren't comfortable with the idea that there's something more. So we keep trying to pull our loved one back into our reality. But I think the best thing that we can do is try to go into their reality and expand our vision of what's possible. What I've noticed the most is that people who have unfinished business with loved ones, where there's a divide in the family, there are people who don't talk to one another, or there's a child that's struggling or something, then they tend to have a lot harder time embracing going to the next place. They tend to really try to stay in this world longer than it's serving them. Their body is not serving them any longer. Their body, which has been this vessel for their soul, I can see and everyone can see is broken, and yet they're clinging to it because they feel like they have this unfinished business here. So that, I've seen that more than anything else that I can comment in, which is that people who feel that there's someone who really needs them here tend to struggle a little more with leaving. And what I have also noticed is that when people say to their loved ones, like, Daddy, it's okay, I'm gonna be all right, I'm gonna miss you, but I'm taken care of, I have everything I need, and even getting into details, this is taken care of and that is, and I know where to find everything, and I'm gonna be okay, and you've given me so much. And even going through, like, you've given me a sense of who I am and what I can be in the world, and I have you inside of me, and I always will, and just reassuring their loved one that they're gonna be okay. I've seen that really take down the level of anxiety and often help people to make that transition when their loved ones can say, we're really okay. That's why I like to say Psalm 23 with people. In Hebrew it's Gam ki elech b'getzel mavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi, which means, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'm not afraid because you are with me. And I always tell them that you are with me means that God, the Lord, is with us. We're never alone, but also that our loved ones are with us. So when we say, I'm not afraid because you are with me, in the Hebrew, it's not clear if it's talking about the Lord or if it's talking about our loved ones. We're not alone. We're never alone. Any step of the journey, we're not alone. We come into this world and we're not alone. And as we leave this world, God is with us. God's angels are surrounding us. Our loved ones are there. And both physically, people are around us, and spiritually, I feel that we're never alone. I think that can also be comforting. Like if someone says, come with me, I think it's expressing this fear that I'm going to be alone. And so I like to always tell people, you're not alone. You're not alone now, and you're not going to be alone when you make this transition. You're always surrounded by God and God's servants. It's an idea that once someone passes away, that you'd never leave the body unattended. There's always someone with the body from the moment that the person's soul leaves them to the moment that they're put in the earth. And we believe that, based on Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, that the human being is made of two parts, the dust of the earth and the breath of God. And that when we're born, our bodies come from the dust of the earth, and that God breathes that breath of life into us, and that becomes our soul. So our bodies are the earth, and our soul is the breath of God. And in Judaism, the word for soul and the word for breath are the same word. It's the neshama. And so there's this idea that God's breath is literally like going through us every single day, that we're like a wind instrument, and God is playing us every day, and our bodies are the instrument, and the breath of God is what animates us and gives us life. And so on that last moment of our lives, that we believe, like with a kiss, God takes the breath back, and the breath goes back to the Creator, and then what we have left is merely the dust of the earth, so that we need to return the body to the earth as quickly as possible. So we're not to look upon the body. We have a closed casket. The Jewish law is that you should return the body to the earth as soon as you possibly can. So usually funerals happen within a day or two of the death. In Israel, sometimes they even happen the same day. But the idea is that the person is no longer there, that the body was a vessel, and now the vessel is bereft of its essence, so you should return it to where it came as soon as possible, and to not spend a lot of time mourning over the body, because that's not where our loved one is. And we believe that our loved one is free from the body. And in fact, we have a tradition of, after you bury the person, you go back to someone's house, a loved one, for 7 days. It's called the period of Shiva. And it's 7 days of receiving visitors and talking and telling stories about the deceased and saying prayers. And we cover up the mirrors in the home of the person who is hosting the Shiva. And the idea behind covering the mirrors is that the soul is very much present during those days, and that the soul is now not part of a body anymore. So were it to pass by a mirror, it would be very startled, because it still feels very much part of this world. And it's almost like we don't want to put it in their face that they're no longer part of our world. So we cover up all the mirrors such that the soul could feel just as comfortable amongst us as if it was still part of this world. Some people will say we cover up the mirrors because we don't want to be vain during this period of mourning for a loved one. But that's more of a, sanitizing of the original idea, which was that the soul was literally present, and that the soul would be startled and upset to see that it was no longer physically embodied, because that's how close the soul is, especially for those first 7 days. And the reason that we have this period of mourning for 7 days and like not shorter, not longer, is because 7 days is the amount of time it took God to create the world. And we believe that when you've lost a loved one, you need 7 days to recreate your world without your loved one in it, so that your world has been broken and shattered, and that you take these 7 days to do the work of creation. And again, it's going to take longer than 7 days to get your life back together, but 7 days of very serious sitting and mourning, and not even really leaving your house. People come in and make all your food for you. You are supposed to wear the same clothes every day. When your loved one passes away, you tear your garment right over your heart. It's a Jewish tradition. You tear your clothing, and then you wear that same clothing for the whole 7 days of Shiva. And that over the course of the year of mourning, we have all sorts of traditions for the first 30 days, for the first 11 months, for the 12 months, that in some ways, through doing these traditions and these particular prayers, you're almost like weaving together the ripped shirt that you have. We don't actually sew it back together, but like it's like a spiritual weaving back together of the torn heart that happens through the rituals that we do over the course of the 12 months. In the time before someone leaves, I think that the Jewish idea is to really just help them to focus on what a difference they've made in this world. So to sit by their side and just remind them of what they have done to make this world a better place. It's called tikkun olam, which means like healing the shattered world. And to help to calm their soul by showing them what a difference they have brought to this world, and sort of sending them off to the next world with a feeling of satisfaction, a feeling of having fulfilled their purpose here. And that can give them a sense of peace as they make the transition. And in Hebrew, the word for peace, shalom, is the same as the word for hello and goodbye. So there's an idea of sending people off, goodbye, at the same time they're being welcomed on the other side, shalom, and they have peace that sort of embraces all of it. A lot of death has been like overly medicalized, and everything, the last days of conversation are all about like, what's one more treatment we could have, or can we insert some tube somewhere? And the conversations are so much about the medical ideas of what's going on, how can we change or fix this situation, as opposed to how can we contribute, like midwife this soul. That's how I see it, as like we're midwives and we're here to gently birth the soul. And it seems that there are a lot of people, our just society in general is trying to to keep it right here as long as possible, no matter what kind of pain or suffering that will cause to the person who's dying, and ultimately to all the loved ones. I think spending those last days talking about all the medical things and focusing on that robs you of an amazing opportunity to reflect and to give love. Just yesterday I was in a room with someone who's over 101, and she's dying, and the doctor came in and was like moving all of her legs and her arms, and it was giving her significant pain and just asking her if various things hurt. And I kind of felt like, does it really matter? Like, do you really need to check off on your sheet if it hurts to move her knee? Like, that's not what we're doing right now. What we're doing right now is transitioning her spirit. And I think, but it's the doctor's job, so I don't blame him. But why is it the doctor or nurse's job to constantly come in and take their temperature and take their blood pressure? And like, if they are dying, like, to just let them do this natural process, I think can be so healing and nurturing for them and for the family. But it's not the way our culture is right now. Our culture is very much into getting the figures, and even to the last moment of someone's life, we're looking at numbers, like beeping, like is 136 good or 122? What does it mean? As opposed to just saying everything is slowing down and they're dying, and let's just hold them and love them. It says in the Torah that every day you should assume is the last day of your life, and that in that way, every day you're doing this tshuva, this work that some people wait till the very end to do. And then it's it's too hard. You're in too much pain, and your loved ones are in too much pain to do it. So we should try to every day be doing the sort of end of life work, so that there aren't a lot of things left to say at the end, so that no one is hooking us up to machines because they want to have a few more days to say they're sorry. I mean, I think in some ways we should see every day like it's our final day, and make sure that when we go to bed at night, the words that as Jews we say every night before we go to bed are the same words that we say right before we die. It's the statement Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which means listen, we're all part of something greater, and that something greater is the one God.